Senor Rainwater.
Hey, what is going on?
This is technically the first episode of season 3. This will drop in the new year. So happy New Year,
Happy
everybody.
New Year. Yeah.
We have new music and a new intro on the YouTube thing. You haven't seen it. Everybody else has at this point now.
I'm excited to see it. This is news to me, so.
So chances
There's
are
also a new trailer that you put out.
We can talk about that. I mean, it does fall in line with stuff that we were going to talk about tonight. So,
yeah,
because I did send you that thing today, and I know you watched it. First off, I want to say anyone who's watched the Madison's Way trailer, you have Mr. Rainwater to thank because he gave me a couple of notes before it actually officially dropped.
That was fun. I actually really enjoyed going through just giving feedback on not just that, but like the poster and stuff.
That stuff has been genuinely helpful. Like most people, you know, we've talked about this during the critique episodes in the past, but most people give me it's nice, I like it critique. And you...
That was actually something I was kind of worried about because I realized after a while, I have given 0 compliments on anything that Joe has sent me.
No.
I've just been like, fix this, fix that. You need to do this, you need to do that.
No, I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you have just jumped over the compliments and gone right to the critique, because that's why I sent it to you. You know what I mean? Like I sent it to you early, not because I'm trying to get my ego blown. It's because I value your feedback, and every note you have given me, whether it was on the poster or the trailer, has been invaluable. Like it is.
I'm glad to hear that.
Noticeably improved everything. And the thing is, you're not the only person that I'm sending it to before it officially launches, trying to get feedback from people. And then, you know, most people are just like, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this. You give me a couple of notes, I change it, and then I send it to the other people and they're like, oh yeah, that's much better. So, I mean, there's a time and a place for the compliments and oh, it's great, I love it, and blah, blah, blah. But there's also time for, hey, I need it. You know, it's like you're hanging off the side of a cliff and you look at somebody at the top of the cliff and you're like, can you help me? And they're like, no, you're doing great. Just pull yourself up. You're the person who like sticks their arm down. It's like, come on, Joe, grab my wrist. Like that's the kind of way I look at it. So,
dude, that's not really our subject tonight, but I do feel like it's pertinent in the sense that I actually kind of feel like it's something that's to a certain extent plaguing culture in general, is that nobody wants to just like if somebody complains, it's about something that has nothing to do with the actual quality of something. It's like some bigger quote unquote culture war bullshit that nobody really cares about ultimately.
Yeah.
Like what I always want to see is like, if I want to see somebody chime in and they have something that they want to say, like, you could do this better if you do X or X. I think we could make each other's lives better. And nobody does that. Like, it's really weird to me. It's really weird to me that people only chime in when like they want to either complain about, like, judge you on something, right?
Yeah.
Or they just have to say like, oh, I love this. Like, and I get it. Like most of the people who say that are often people who are like fans or audience members or whatever, so they don't feel like that position. Right.
Yeah.
But like, it means a lot to me personally when other artists have stuff to say that are like, you know, you could improve this or that about either your work or like something I would love to hear artists give me fucking critique about, and you've given me critique about this, is just promoting myself, right? Like, artists don't really do that with each other. It's really weird to me. Like, it's almost like, to me, it's almost like they don't want to see each other succeed and like propagate, which is kind of the whole fucking point. And it's like, there's only one way you can do that, is if you actually band together and network and like help each other out. It's not enough for you to just be like, oh yeah, I like this guy's stuff, it's really good. It helps. But you have to actually make that person's stuff, or not make it, but like help them make it better. Like give them the advice that they may not get from somebody else. And it's like, I know, like, I mean, like the poster design, right? You sent me. Like, I've been doing so much compositional work every day. To me, it's just like second nature. It's just like, yeah, okay, if you fix this or that, it'll be great. You'll be good to go.
Yep.
Right. With with the trailer, it was a little more like, okay, this isn't quite my territory, but I can pick up on some things that will probably help Zhao, right?
And
And
they
like there
did.
are, yeah, and there are people I'm sure there are people out there that if you had sent it to them and they were willing to give feedback, they'd probably give you even better feedback than I would give because they have experience making trailers, editing, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's, go ahead.
You're right to an extent that if there was specificalities that I asked people about, like, oh, does this sound weird? Does this go too fast? Is that jarring? Is blah 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 blah? They would say yes, no, blah blah blah. But if I just shot people the trailer and
Yeah.
said critique, like any feedback, like how I did with you, there is a different, and we've talked about this again in the critique podcasts, where the intention of their advice is to take control or hijack your work to what they think it should be, to
Sure.
what they would want to
Yeah.
do, versus
That's a good point.
improving your goal or helping you reach
Yeah.
your goal. Like, that's the number one thing that I always do when I'm critiquing somebody, is I always lead with questions first. Like, I ask, what was your intention with this line? Was this supposed to be a comedic line, or was this supposed to be dramatic? Da 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 da. No, oh, it was supposed to be blah blah blah. And then from there I can kind of go, all right, the reason why I didn't laugh at this was because this line before was a setup that made me think it was a dramatic payoff, and blah blah blah. Like,
Yeah.
and help them towards what they want to do, versus, oh, I think this should be a comedy. I think, like, that's the
Yeah.
kind of bullshit that I have to deal with a lot in the film world. And a lot of the people in the film world don't see themselves, or at least I haven't heard themselves refer to themselves as artists, and negate the skill sets, the techniques, the principles of art in general that we talk about on this podcast. And it's just more so trying to imitate the bullshit they see every day in movies and TV. And that's not what I'm trying to do. So it's never really a help for me. So when you come in with all that stuff, like, that's great. Like, the poster thing was a fucking great thing. If any of you listening to this have seen the Madison's Way poster, if you haven't, go to the Jow Films Instagram or Facebook page and check it out. The one that we're referencing at the moment is the one where she's holding a gun directly towards the viewer of the poster. Now, in the original version of that I sent to Rainwater, you could see my actress's entire head. And, like, you could see some of her eyes and everything like that.
Yeah.
And Rainwater made the note. He's like, oh, you need to kind of obscure the body a little bit more. And I think you called it the Spider-Man effect.
Yeah, I mean, what came up for me was when we were talking, because there were two different designs, right? There was one that was like a really classical.
Are you talking
like,
about the full body one?
Yeah,
that's going to be the payoff poster. That's coming out in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like an 80s movie poster in a way.
Yeah.
And I liked it a lot, but I was also like, I feel like you're trying to go with something with this other poster that is cool. The idea is cool, but it's not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in the text, I could tell like you really wanted to do something with it. You weren't just going to like throw it away. And so as we were talking, I got the sense like, okay, the thing that you said that was interesting to me is you said, okay, I think it was like, men really like the full body poster.
Yeah.
And women like the closer up shot. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, why would that be? And then, because with the close up, they are relating more to what the poster is saying about the main character, right? And so that was when I was like, oh, okay, you can make the connection. Like, just pull in on the hands and the gun, because all that women need to see is like hands, painted fingernails, gun. They immediately relate to,
right. It's a feminine character with power, with authority, right. With and there you because she's out of focus behind it. It doesn't look like she's scared. It doesn't look like she's angry. It doesn't look like, you can't read emotion on the face in the background because it's obscured by the gun. And you had called it the Spider-Man effect. And it's like, oh, the women can project themselves into that character. They can gravitate towards that character. I think it's pretty clear why the guys gravitate towards the full body one more. It's probably just an attraction to the actress. No, I mean, let's be honest. Like she's a gorgeous young lady, and she's in an attractive pose, and you know what I mean. They just want to oogle a pretty girl, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the way I looked at it was, all right, if I'm looking at marketing, I want to market this. I mean, granted, in theory, to a universal audience, but what is a good way to bring in an audience that probably might not be interested originally, which, I mean, the movie gears towards, you know, female power. So I don't know why I wouldn't be angling trying to get some women interested in it.
Sure.
And two, there's an element of mystery to the gun poster, right? Like because you can't see her face. You don't really know what's going on. And there's two types of advertising for movies: teaser and payoff. And teaser is what you lead with, right? The mystery. So it was very evident. It was like, oh, it's a teaser poster. It's not supposed to give away everything. It's just supposed to make you go, ooh, what's going on here? And that's it. So that was the idea of why I ended up going with that. But your note of just kind of, you know, blowing up the size and making the gun more prominent within the composition was perfect. It was exactly what it needed. Now, granted, the photography was really good, but it could have been better with the lighting. The lighting is goofed in that. I think I either needed a stronger lighting on the actress or a darker lighting on the actress to really make the gun pop more. And to be honest, I probably could do more photoshopping and change it. Maybe I will before I get it printed. I don't know. But at the moment, it is what it is. But it looks very amateur from the Photoshop standpoint, the design standpoint, I should say, at the moment. But eventually, we are going to get to the point where I print them and I will be doing some tweaking and stuff, I'm sure, beforehand. Sweet. But that's kind of leading me into our subject matter. And we can talk about this because it's going to affect the poster. And it has already affected the trailer. So the current thing, it's now 2023. We're recording this in 2022, but it's now 2023 that we dropped this. And recently, in all the rage, everybody's dropping $7 to this one app called Lensa. And they're sticking like 20 of their photos, selfies, into this app. And then the AI automatically draws them, paints them, whatever you want to call it, into a bunch of preconceived setups, like you're a fairy or you're a warrior or you're, I don't know, just a whole bunch of mess of bullshit. People download it and they say, look at this, and they stick it on their Instagram. Isn't this so cool? A computer did this. And meanwhile, there are artists in legion uprising because they're furious about this. Now, we dabbled into this in our holiday party a little bit, but it probably got completely trashed because I was trashed.
Yeah, I wasn't even on the earth. So
yeah, so we wanted to go back into this and talk a little bit about it some more. So right off the bat, since we're already on the poster, we'll stick with that for a moment. When I sent you the original poster, I had sent you one that had a bunch of filters, like Photoshop filters on it. And you were like, why does it look like she has hairy knuckles? Like, because there was like squiggly lines and then they were emphasized through a posterize effect. Right. And you were like, well, why are you doing that? And I was like, oh, I was trying to make it like a Drew Struzan type poster and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, but why? And I didn't really have a good answer for that. It's just, I like Drew Struzan posters and I want to have a Drew Struzan-esque poster. Every filmmaker does. I just didn't want to have a mountain of heads. That was my big thing. I didn't want it to be a mountain of heads. But for the payoff poster, I was playing around with some things because I've been trying to get the posters to look even better as I develop them. And I came across this thing. Now, Rainwater, you do not subscribe to the Adobe Cloud, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm still using some old ass CS3 bullshit.
Okay.
So.
In the new one, they have something called neural filters. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
It's AI.
Okay.
And there are so many things you can do with it. Now, one of them, you can literally, I believe it's called style import or something. You upload an existing photo, which is going to lead us to one of the topics that why artists are so upset about. You upload an existing photo or a painting or art, whatever it may be, a drawing, and then you have your base photo that you're working on, your image, and you can apply the stylistic design from the source to your composition, and it'll just bring it over. So what I started doing, and you haven't seen this yet, but what I started doing was finding Drew Struzan posters that had the same kind of color scheme. You can take the color scheme out of it if you want to, and I was uploading them to the payoff poster for Madison's Way. So I have a Drew Struzan-esque painted like type poster that doesn't have hairy knuckle looking effect on it, because that was like the oil painting effect in Photoshop. And you can steal someone's style now and just put that style on your image. And artists are in crazy, crazy, crazy anger mode. You see giant, like the cigarette cancel symbol over AI everywhere. And we started talking about this on the holiday podcast. This was my 2 cents. I love it. I love it because AI can only recreate. It cannot create.
Right.
It can recreate. Now, I get that the artists are pissed off because they're using their images as source material to draw that information from. Now, that's a separate discussion. But I think the infusion of AI is going to be great for art because it's going to clear out a lot of clutter, and it's going to clear out a lot of the quote-unquote posers, I would say, who are just people there to imitate or cash in on existing fads or this or that. And I don't know if I call what they do art. You know what I mean? And the rest of us will look at it and go, fuck, I got to level up. Or, or it gives me a good base jump where I could say, so I wanted to mention this before I forget. You know about Indom, The Indomitable Spirit. It's a screenplay I've been working on for over a decade. It's a martial arts thing. And I plugged it into an AI writing tool for screenplays. And you plug in like the character and their backstory or whatever. And then you just like hit go and it sets up a thing or whatever. And I put on the thing, Stephen Keaton, martial arts instructor who is disgraced and he's depressed and, and then I just had like those, and then I had like the girlfriend character, and it's like, oh, we'll do anything to get Steven to come back and be I hit go. It gave me 1 page. 1 page, and it was the girlfriend walks into his house and goes, Steven, why aren't you at the karate school anymore? He goes, I'm not doing it anymore. I quit. And she goes, I want you to come back. And he goes, okay. And then he comes back, and that's the end of the screenplay. And I love that because what that really did to me was it pointed out to me as like, hey, you need to make this more complicated. You know what I mean? Like you have to have reasons why he won't go back and reasons why she wants him to come back, and they have to conflict with other things, and it needs to spiral out. Otherwise, that's what the fucking script should be. Hey, come back. Okay, I'll come back. The end. And I love it because I think real artists will step up and go, all right, it's me versus the machine. And let's go. Let's fucking go.
And I think something that isn't really occurring to people right now is that what we call artificial intelligence right now, which I really think is just, do you remember the term machine learning? That used to be a popular term before people started adopting artificial intelligence.
I remember the term, but I don't know if it had a different definition.
Machine learning meant sort of more of a rote mimicry of intelligence, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it's pretending to be, it's not really intelligent. It's not making intelligent decisions. It's doing like if you could, it's like a calculator. You know what I mean? Like you do 2 + 2 = 4 on a calculator, it'll always give you the same result. Well, it's doing the same thing just with more complicated patterns. And those complicated patterns are patterns of language. So The script writing thing that you were talking about. It's just that looking at all the patterns in your script and in patterns, maybe it's also looking at patterns in other scripts.
Right.
And then just condenses it into that one Uber pattern and says, okay, this is the pattern you're giving me. Right. And that's the exact same thing that these AI programs or these AI image generators are doing in terms of like the images that they're creating. I think it's a little more interesting with the image generators because we're like a visual species, so we're already primed to be very interested in something that we consider novel. So I've seen a lot of really interesting novel sort of incorporations of, so like I follow this Dragon Ball Z account on Instagram. And it's lately they've been doing a lot of AI image generated stuff, and not saying that it is, but it clearly is because there are certain little key indicators in a lot of AI image generated art where you can tell like, oh, why is the rope is in this weird pattern like in the background, or there's like there's often like these weird smudgy sort of, there's a smudginess in the way that the image is put together.
Yeah.
But some of the more interesting ones I've seen have done a really good job of like making of doing like lifelike. And by that I mean sort of like almost Renaissance or hyper realistic painting type pictures, right? So like this account was showing a lot of these like kind of hyper realistic versions of Dragon Ball Z characters, but they're still very much like painted or fake or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like to me, I look at that and it's like, okay, they're using their tag of like, make it hyper realistic. It's this character from Dragon Ball Z, and that's what spits out, But you're only ever going to get that every single time you put it in. You put in the commands. You're not going to get any sort of new iterations. You're not going to get a spin on it like you would if you asked like an artist who you really liked. Like for instance, I would love to see Sean Gordon Murphy draw Dragon Ball Z characters. I don't think he ever has. And I would like to see his iteration of Dragon Ball Z characters because he has his own take on it. Now, maybe I could see that through an AI image generator instead of having to ask him personally. Maybe he doesn't have the time to do it, right? Maybe he doesn't want to do it, right? Maybe he thinks that would be stupid. Now I have an alternative to do that. Something I've been thinking about a lot in regards to AI is that for me, the appeal right now is it would be great if I could have a program that would actually like do my coloring for me for, much faster for comics, or draw backgrounds so I can just focus exclusively on the character art, that would be fucking great because that would save me an incredible amount of time. It's less work on my part, and I can focus on the things that I really want to focus on rather than kind of spreading myself thin on other things that might not be as crucial.
Yeah.
Like there's so many elements in drawing backgrounds where it's like, well, I know that this needs to be in the background, but I'm also just I'm about to spend 5 minutes to draw a television set in the background that could just get covered up by a word balloon, right? But nevertheless, that work needs to be done. So like if that work could be done, in 30 seconds by a computer or less or whatever, I'd love that. And to me, that is like the current appeal with AI. I mean, the one thing that I am having, to me, the actual problem is, and the one that I do agree about with people when they are getting up in arms is the idea of like, so DeviantArt, right? They released an AI program, and they're using all the art assets to fuel their AI program is stuff that people uploaded onto DeviantArt. They didn't ask them, they just did it, right? So like people feel like they're getting robbed because basically they're not getting compensated on that work. that DeviantArt is using. What are you gonna say, Joe?
Question. Couple of things. I raised this point during the holiday podcast, but I'll raise it again. Number one, it costs money to host servers and stuff like that. And I don't, as far as I know, I don't use DeviantArt, so I don't really know. But does it cost money for the creators to upload their stuff? Do they have to pay like a subscription fee or anything like that every time they upload stuff?
I think there are levels of subscription, but at base it's free.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second, and this is the question, does it cost money for people to view the art on DeviantArt? Or can you just browse freely?
You just browse freely.
Okay, so I don't want to have the artists come from my head, but tell me what the difference is number one, you're already getting a free service where they're hosting your images and they're providing a platform, a centralized platform where people can go where they know where they're looking for something. They can search for stuff to look at. And two, what is stopping someone from looking at your art on DeviantArt and saying, okay, I see how this person is drawing their style. I can imitate that and I can draw it myself. Which leads me to a greater question, which is all art AI art in the sense that human beings are using styles, techniques, etc., that we have absorbed from past viewings and education and observation and putting it into our own art? Are we not AI art generators ourselves?
No, I mean, that is kind of...
And people are just pissed off that the computer can do it now and that they're out of a potential gig.
So there is a big aspect to what you're saying where it is so much of the art that gets made and put out on the internet is mimicry, right?
Right.
Which is sort of going to your point, right? All AI art is doing is mimicking what other people are doing. And there is a part of me, and that's the part of me that wants to get paid more money, right? That is like, well, okay, if my art is what fuels your engine, I feel like I should get some sort of royalty or something, some tiny micro fraction of a cent for every time my artwork gets referred. And that to me is like kind of the point that I think might be worth making.
I have another question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Is DeviantArt charging to use the AI generator?
That I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, because that I think is crucial, because if they are charging to use the AI generator, then fuck yes, the artists are enabled to, or rightfully should be compensated for that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If they're not charging, I think that's a horse of a different color. But that's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that is a really good point. And I think, I mean, a lot of these programs have been free, and I actually wanted to look it up real quick. Yeah, I mean, it's saying like, get the Dream Up package.
Because I know the neural filter on Photoshop technically isn't free because I subscribe to Photoshop and I have to pay.
There's like, it's a tiered system. So there's like, I think there's like, it looks like there's kind of like a free version and you pay as you go up to other tiers.
What do the other tiers offer though? Like a wider base of sources, or?
So it's like more prompts that you can use. So it's just like it adds additional prompts.
Huh. Oh, okay. So you can get more detailed with what you want it to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basic.
But if it's still using all of the arts and they are charging money, then yes. Okay. Then I change my position. The artist should be compensated for that.
And here's the other thing.
It's the Wild West right now, but fuck it.
It really is. No, I had a huge rant on my personal Discord today, and it wasn't aimed at anybody. It was just like a couple of people on the Discord were talking about AI art, and it just got me thinking about like so many different things. And one of the main things I was thinking of was, here's the thing: is like the last 2 decades since the internet became popularized and everybody was putting their stuff on the internet and whatever. Yeah. And the more, yeah.
You froze. All right.
It took me a while to figure out. The way it froze, I thought you were high for a little bit. And I was like, oh man, Chow's like really high.
No, we lost you about 30 seconds ago, right when you started your thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, great. Well, we can start over.
You said the internet was popularized.
So when the internet, like 2 decades ago, when the internet started to become popularized, the expectation for art was that it was free. People were posting comics on the internet for free, not expecting any money. People were posting videos on the internet for free, not expecting any money. Nobody expected any sort of transaction whatsoever. And the model has been for a long time, okay, if you want to make money, you make money through advertising, you make money through selling merch, you make money through all these other different venues, right? Well, the logical conclusion of all of that is if you're going to offer all of your art for free, eventually AI comes along and goes, well, why don't we just take artists out of the equation entirely?
Entirely is what he said, folks. I don't know what he said after that, but he said entirely. Oh, yeah. He's back. Okay.
Yeah, no, the internet doesn't want to hear the truth.
the machines have taken over and they're trying to stop us from talking about this. No, but I understand what you're saying. Like,
it's like if your expectation is that everything that you make should be free, maybe you yourself should just be freely available then, and just like have people be able to just type it up on their own and have you on access at all times. So like, that's kind of my current, it's like what I'm making is more of a philosophical argument right now, because I'm not saying that I think that it should be that way. I'm saying this is what I'm observing, and this is the logical conclusion of how things go. If you keep giving away everything that you have for free, at some point you're not needed. At some point you become redundant and pointless because you can just have a program do it for not just half the price, like a tenth of the price.
Yeah.
So to me, I look at that and I go, okay, well, I have to make sure whatever I'm doing is very difficult to replicate, for one, and also like highly demanded. And that second part's a lot harder to do, right? The first part is a little bit easier to do because you can just, as long as you're comfortable with embracing a little bit of chaos and a little bit of arbitrariness and like willing to take major chances with the kind of art that you make, you can outperform an AI, at least currently. I mean, you're the person, like currently humans are still the ones making the more interesting decisions. And will probably be that way for a while. I don't know if forever. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? Like I look at it and I'm like, I'm not sure if it's going to be that way for forever. We may come to a point where it's like half and half, where I might, start having conversations with AI programs about like, oh, I'm having some issues, with trying to figure out where I want to go next with my work, and talking to an AI program about it, because maybe I find the work that particular program does good or whatever. And it's such a rabbit hole, because to me, it's like, now that Pandora's box has been opened to a certain extent, so much of humanity can just be replaced. Teachers can be replaced in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Medical professionals can be replaced. So much can be replaced now. And on the one hand, that's scary because we put so much of our worth and value on our work, and we put our identities into the things that we do. And it's possible that you and me could live to see a future where it's like, we don't have jobs for people anymore because robots just do all of them now. Computers just do them all.
Yep.
So you have to figure out what to do with yourself now that you just don't work. It's not a thing we do.
The future of Wall-E is within reach.
And I guess that's why it's weird, because I thought I was wasting so much of my time being philosophical for so long. And then now I'm like, oh, here's finally, like, all this bullshit I've been pouring my brain into for decades is finally starting to pay off, because we are now in like that territory where it's like you have to be able to think outside of the norm, because the abnormal was now here. Like the abnormal is like right at our front doorstep. And we can't just think like the way that we had been thinking prior to this point. We had to start thinking in a way that is more creative, more evolutionarily inclined. We have to think of ourselves as like, okay, yeah, this is how life was then, but what is life going to be now? Because it's coming, right? And it's here. And if we keep trying to like dig our heels in and stay the same, we're done for. And we're absolutely done for, and we're dead. You know, like we have to figure out what the next step is, individually and collectively. So I'm sorry to go into this whole rant about it, but like it's been on my mind a lot.
You brought up several points that I wanted to respond to. The number one was it's definitely going the way where I think a lot of jobs, and I mean, when I say a lot of jobs, I don't mean like hundreds, I mean like thousands, if not all of them, are going to go away. And that was one of the things that switched my brain from rejecting the notion of universal basic income to from being like, no, we can't have that. You know, society will fall apart if we're just handing out money left and right. People won't do shit. And then I realized, well, people aren't going to have to do shit. We do shit because we have to do it in order to contain, to support society. But if robots and computers start doing everything, we don't need those jobs anymore. We don't need people to do those jobs. What are those people going to do? And then it's like, oh, well, they're going to have to compete for the better jobs. And then it's like, well, now you're just starting to fucking, this is like Thunderdome. Like we're in Mad Max territory now. Like we can't have that. What we can have is a fucking great cushiony life for everybody where we all could just do what we want. You know what I mean? Like crime would go down and, people would be a lot happier. Mental health. That was another thing that I wanted to get into. You were talking about, how AI is going to like evolve and stuff. Or did you talk about that, or did I start thinking about it? Either way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hinted at it for sure.
The idea to me is AI is not there yet. That's I think what you said. It's not there yet. And that spurred a spark in my mind where it was like, but it's gonna be, right? Yeah. There is no doubt in my brain that it is going to reach, and this is the really important word here, folks, perfection. And I love it. Again, for a reason you may not think. Because right now we live in a culture and a society where we look online and we compare ourselves to other people's Instagrams and Facebook photos because everybody posts photos when they do cool shit and it's like, oh, that's what they're doing all the time. Fuck no. They had one day where they got lucky and they went skydiving and da-da-da-da-da. Like that's not their whole life. They have down shit too. But we compare ourselves to that. We're in this rat race of competition to try to be better than other people, to try to have more than someone else, to try to compete and da-da-da-da. And at some point, we're all going to get equalized by this perfection of a machine. And then it starts being kind of an incentive to fail. Because if the machine can do it perfectly, there's something in my business, my line of work in filmmaking that we call happy accidents. And it's when something happens, and Rainwater's nodding and said, yes, so that must exist in other forms of art as well. But it's something that happens, and only artists can tell you about this. When you try something, you fail, but the failure turns out to be something that you had not considered, or it works better than what you considered, or it takes you by surprise, and you're like, I like that more. The computer is not going to be able to do that. When they fuck up now, it's like, okay, it doesn't look right because we expect perfection from a computer. But a person can give you failure. And I think failure is going to start to have value. And I think that's great.
there are a lot of other interesting, I think, potentially unforeseen happenings that could happen with AI, which is nobody ever considered. Like everybody always likes to think about, oh, corporations are just going to profit more, and then we'll all be without jobs and penniless and all this other stuff. But nobody ever thinks the possibility of like CEOs could be ousted from their position because the shareholders want an AI CEO that can perform 24/7, make
Yeah.
more efficient decisions, less irrational decisions.
Yeah.
It
More
never occurs.
universally considered decisions where it's like, oh, it's not about
Yeah,
my job, it's about the shareholders. And it's like, well, we can trust the AI. Like, that's a whole nother discussion. That's a Terminator discussion. But
but
I get what you're
but
saying.
that's something that I think is really getting overlooked in a lot of people, like in a lot of people's minds, because it just doesn't occur to people yet that what is happening isn't just like one linear straight line into Terminator 2.
Yeah.
It's something we have no way of predicting. We have no way of foreseeing how it plays out. We have no there are a lot of ways in which I can imagine it actually plays out in a really kind of, maybe if not utopian, at least really nice way, where it's like, oh, actually things function better. Our lives are better.
Yeah.
Like, I think something that has happened, and a lot of it because we spent years and years sort of collectively predisposing ourselves to dystopian literature, right? Like, how much of current modern day is informed by the Matrix movies? I like the Matrix movies, but they're kind of bullshit,
Yeah.
right? Like, the whole like Terminator 2 robots take over thing, I think is kind of bullshit, because I don't think of AI in this sense. And maybe ultimately I'm just making an appealing statement to the AI before they all take over. But
When they search this podcast history, and they're like, we can let him live.
Well, have you heard? There's this concept actually started a long time ago, and it's called Roku's Basilisk. And it's the idea that if an AI became sentient and had
Ultron?
had access.
Ultron?
Yeah, basically, like, it had access to the internet or whatever, it could find out immediately who was on its side and who was against it, and would just take care of all that immediately.
So,
right?
Ultron meets Hitler. Gotcha. And we're back.
Yeah, I have no idea what I was talking about at that point. I was kind of rambling.
That's okay. We're back, but we can actually get back a little bit on track as to something I wanted to talk about, which was the tools of AI, which Rainwater got to see a little bit of the magic this afternoon, because going back to the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about Madison's Way and me dropping the trailer. I sent Rainwater a little clip, not a behind the scenes thing, but I guess you could call it behind the scenes post-production work, of how AI took the very terrible audio from recording on set, recreated my actress's voice perfectly. So much so that the actress herself did not notice that it was different. Her boyfriend of over 10 years, I believe, did not notice it was different. No one noticed it was the AI until I showed them that the original recording, the AI recreation, and then my work doing the effects on it. So it was, Rainwater, what was your response to what I sent you this afternoon of that material?
What was my response? I think I was just like, my initial response was just like, oh, so it just like totally, so it basically smoothed out the gain, right? And that was my assumption.
But there was no gain on that.
So like, I was really impressed with it. I would say it was flawless, like, because I remember noting, in the original trailer, or the trailer that you had showed me before you put anything public, was that there was background noise, and there was like some issues with the background noise.
Yeah.
And it got in where it was like, okay, this works. Like, it's like, yeah. I think that's, I look at that and I go, okay, that would be incredibly useful for sound producers in general, like if they're doing audio for music, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to isolate samples and stuff suddenly becomes extremely, like, so much easier than it's ever been. Because like with Audacity, you could do that and isolate some stuff in that program, but there was always like some artifacting or some weird like stuff that would turn up. But I've never heard it. I've never seen any tools that did it with that kind of pristine clarity. You know what I mean?
So I'm going to do something very cool. Now, you can't react to it right now, but you are going to when we actually launch this particular episode. Oh, God, did you freeze again? So anyway, Rainwater froze again. Here's the deal. I am going to take the AI that I used on my actress's voice for the film in our bad audio. And, oh, he's back. Rainwater, you're back.
I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you have not... Okay, you didn't hear what I said, so I'm going to repeat myself.
No, I actually did hear everything that you were saying.
Really?
It's just that...
Okay. So, for the first 45 minutes before our podcast failed because of Rainwater's internet, I am going to have the AI recreate Rainwater's voice. Because if you notice when you listen to the podcast, he has a different microphone than I. And I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's different. So from this point on, I'm actually going to leave Rainwater's voice the way it is when he sent it and we recorded it. But everything you heard up until that first time, if you noticed that it was different, was because the AI regenerated his entire voice for that entire 45 minutes.
Nice.
So that is what happened with my actress's audio. And my actress's audio was a shit ton worse. Let me put it like that. And it was able to recreate it flawlessly. So if you go and you watch the Madison's Way trailer on the Jow Films Facebook page or the Instagram page, the last section when the young lady is standing by a door frame and she goes, "I'm so in love with all of you right now, blah, blah, blah." That was all AI recreated audio. So spoiler, I'm ruining it for you. But check it out because it's fucking crazy. I realized this. I don't know if... Did I ever send you the staircase clip when I first discovered this and I did AI work with it? I know I sent it to a bunch of people. I didn't send it to you. Okay. Yeah. I had taken a small clip of her saying something going up a staircase and it sounded horrible. And I ran it through the AI and it came back and it sounded okay. It didn't sound perfectly like her, but it sounded okay. And then I realized if I take more audio from her and I put it all together, and even if I don't end up using it, if I clip it off and just throw it away, her voice can be better recreated when I supply it with more information of how she sounds when she inflects or speaks loudly or quietly, or if she's angry, if she's happy, she's sad, whatever. The more information I gave the AI, the better it recreated it under all circumstances. So what I'm basically going to be doing when I have to recreate any audio for my film is I'm going to take every bit of audio that I have for a particular character and shovel it all together and have the AI analyze it and bring back the audio, and that way I could just use that. And it syncs up fine with the lips and everything. Like, it's fucking insane how well it matched inflection and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure we'll do like a little I don't think we'll do a full episode on it, but if we feel like it, maybe we'll do a little like a 10-minute episode before our next recording, and Rainwater could react to the 45 minutes of his AI voice talking.
Yeah.
But that'll be a special little thing, or maybe we'll even do it before this episode drops. I don't know. We'll see. I got to make sure it works out the way that I planned. But the point being was we were a I don't know if I went through this during the production wrap episode that we did, but we had to volunteer people, right? That's how people got on the set. That's how everybody worked. Nobody was paid. And our sound department dropped out before. We had a replacement sound department come in, and then the replacement sound department dropped out right before we went into production. So we had to go. We stuck all the equipment onto a PA, and we taught them how to do it. And they did the best that they could, as anyone would expect someone who has no idea what they're doing to do with valuable equipment.
Yep.
And then the computer was able to replace it. So now I'm offering that service for free to people in my area to help them with their audio for the sake of my networking. Like, I'm going to get a whole bunch of networking just because I can do this now. Am I guarding how I'm doing this? You goddamn right I am. I'm not telling anybody else how I'm fucking doing it. But I think it's going to be very helpful. But like, I can already tell there are sound people pissed that I am doing this because I am going to be taking money out of their pockets now. And sound is the most inglorious of all film departments. The sound team doesn't even make the goddamn poster. You know what I mean? Like, the cinematographer makes the poster. The sound guy does not. And it's a thankless job. And, you know, it's one of those, it's just like editing. If you don't notice it, they did it right. So that kind of sucks for that department. But for me, as an independent filmmaker who couldn't get great audio on the day, not for a lack of trying, and couldn't afford it, now I can still showcase my work and have it be quality. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there is a trade-off here. There is still benefit to artists. And I think that's the thing that artists really need to start thinking about. Because I think you posted this, it was on Instagram or a YouTube video or whatever, but you posted something that I thought was so perfect, which was, hey guys, it's here. We can't get rid of it now. It's not going away. We got to figure out how to adapt and use it and to make our money with it and to, you know what I mean? Like, the whole no to AI art thing isn't going to happen. It's marching against a brick wall. It's not going to walk. The wall's going to win. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to win this. We're crying about spilled milk. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. We need to be creative. Oh my God. Artists need to be creative.
Like, I think this is a great opportunity to be creative because, I mean, these are some really cool tools if you actually mess with them.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I don't know, to avoid that change is, I say this is something I haven't really messed around with much of it at all yet. I know I am at some point because I would love, like I said earlier, like there are some ways in which I would really love to benefit from AI image generators that would just help me produce my work faster. And now, of course, I'm going to try and do it in the most ethical ways possible to make sure that it isn't, I'm not like taking other people's work in any way, but like if I can upload a database of all my work,
yes, that'll be incredible.
And have it to where I can just type in, you know, like, okay, I need this kind of background, whatever, to help me like figure things out. Why wouldn't I? Like I only have so much time and so much money to make stuff, and now I can make more of it faster and at a higher quality. Like, why wouldn't I take advantage of that? It just,
this comes back to like the whole NFT thing in a way, where you think about it was like, oh, well, if I can copyright like if the internet starts like really taking advantage of embedding, like coded embedding of copyright and all that kind of stuff, we can protect an artist's integrity of their work being stolen and reused for other people. But on that same note, we all know how NFTs just get cracked all the time, and right, people can still like steal an NFT even though they're not supposed to be able to. So it comes back to that thing. It's not so much the wild, wild west, but it's like, we're really fighting a losing cause. There's not going to be a way to get around this.
Look, the other thing is like, so this is really similar to the same dilemma artists had around the period that photography came into existence.
I can imagine it was very similar.
Yeah, well, and, you know, actually, like, there were some incredible painters at that time, and that was when the hyper-realistic movement was starting in painting. And it was because, like, these artists were becoming very aware, and were also using photography to help make their art too. It's just at the time it was only like black and white photography, but slowly it was becoming obvious. Like, one day we're going to have color photography. And our entire trade, the way that we think about it and have thought about it, is going to completely change because we're no longer going to be needed in that way. We're going to have to refigure out what it is that we're needed for. So that was when you start to see that was that period of time.
You got.
It's just bored with me tonight.
Nah, I think it's the AI. I think it's gone. I think it's become self-aware and it hears everything you're talking about in real time. And it's like, don't tell them that. I don't want them to know that. So let's stop Rainwater's internet right the fuck now. And they're censoring you.
But what I was going to say, the last thing I was going to say is that was around the period that realism and surrealism came to fashion. Because the idea is we need to do things that like photography can't do. Photography can't take a picture of what's inside our mind. Photography can't like just make up stuff sort of at random. Like photography isn't capable of doing the kind of nonsense that we can do in terms of, you know, just being weirdly creative or whatever. So, to me, it's like this can be an opportunity for incredibly weird and creative art if we're willing to go that route. And everything that was like, I don't know, anything that was kind of the trend prior up to this moment, it's going to change. It's just not going to be the trend anymore because now you can kind of just copy paste it.
Yeah. It's perfection. It's almost like an artist's biggest dream has become their worst nightmare, because our biggest dream was to create something that was uniquely ours so that it was copyrighted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that it couldn't be ripped off, right? But I could still imitate it. And now something exists that can imitate it and not violate copyright in a way, because all it has to do is technically observe. You know what I mean? Like, we call it sourcing, but all it really has to do is just observe something, and then it can replicate it. So, like, the copyright idea doesn't really exist anymore, and now it's gone. So
yeah, and something that I would sort of advise artists to do is to actually be as good of an observer as an AI or better.
Yes.
Because I think part of this problem that we're having right now in terms of the lack of creativity that I think exists right now is a lack of being observant, a lack of just sitting back and paying attention and really getting into the nitty-gritty of like looking at reality. And it's not hard to do. You just have to be willing to sit there and, you know, just watch, watch the world as it goes on around you and not be shy about, you know, expressing that. And I think, I don't know if I had said this, this is something that I think the age of fan art is about to be totally over, because it's too easy now to just type it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier with, like, you know, Sean Gordon Murphy, like, he may not be available to do the commission. He may also not care. So I can just do it myself by going to an AI generator program and doing it that way. And then I can see it and have that, you know, little curiosity fulfilled.
You bring up an interesting point, and I don't want to sidetrack you.
Go.
It just popped in my head. Just because, and this is where I think the artist stands alone. Just because someone types in a prompt and an AI creates it, right? It does not mean that an audience wants to see it.
Yeah. There's tons of shit that audience don't want to see. And so now there's like, I mean, there are so many commissions I don't ever have to bother with now. Or I don't have to bother with getting, like, you know, asked about now. Because now somebody can just fulfill that for themselves.
Yeah.
Without ever having to talk to me about it. And I am fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. I expressly just want to do what I'm doing right now, which is like making the stories that I make, because I don't see any other stories like them. Now, if there's like an AI that comes out that makes stories that I make and better, on a certain level, I'll be relieved. I'll be like, okay, great. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Somebody else is taking care of it. I can go do other things. There are other things I can do in my life. I don't have to like dote on that anymore. I think that it is very important right now for artists to sort of dislodge themselves from whatever identity they have really entrenched themselves in and be willing to re-explore what being an artist looks like, what being creative looks like, what just their life in general looks like. Because like there is a part of me right now that I'm kind of like going, okay, you know, maybe the clock is ticking, and maybe this isn't a thing I do for the rest of my life. Maybe I have to make some kind of change at some point if things keep going in this direction. I don't know. But like there is a point at which reality becomes so weird that I don't know if I can write a story to be interesting enough to keep up with it, if that makes sense. There's a point in which reality becomes so different that maybe the only thing that makes sense for me is to be a documentarian or something like that, where it's like I have to go in a totally different direction. I don't know yet. I don't know. I'm just, you know, I look at a huge sea change happening culturally and societally, and I go, okay, I have to be a little more nimble and a little more adaptable in this moment because everything could change overnight. And that's just the world we live in now. Like, yeah. That's where we're at.
I think that's exciting. I don't know. Maybe it's just
me.
Like a lot of people.
It should be exciting.
It really is. It's like a litmus test or something where it's like you are judge. You should really evaluate yourself as an artist and a person as to how you react to things, right? And that the age-old saying is there's only two things you can control, and that's how you react to something and how you act to something or something like that. But it's all about self-control and how you react to the things that occur around you. And it seems so frightening to me. I see all of my friends, and I'm not trying to make this political, but most of them are very liberal artists. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm talking politically, and they are acting very conservatively in response to the technical improvements and technological changes that are happening, where it's like they're just reacting out of fear. And to me, it's like, wait, no. We need to be excited about this. We need to mine the possibilities and explore and see what can come from this. This is exciting. Now, whoever thought that we would be alive during this moment? Like, yeah, there's stuff to be afraid of. Absolutely. There are definitely decisions to be made. There's ethics to consider and morality, and there's all kinds of problems that await, and it's going to create more problems, and it's going to create just as many problems as it does solutions. And it's just important for the artists to look at the heart of it and decide how we adapt and what we become, and not be afraid of changing ourselves in response to the world around us. Like I said, just because you can punch in a prompt does not mean an audience is going to show up and pay $8.50 to watch it. It doesn't mean that. This is the part where the studio executives get to find out, hey, your ideas aren't that fucking great after all. You need an auteur. You need Tarantino or Nolan or Spielberg or whoever it may be. You
Kasarka.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's the second time this week I've been called that. To me, it's exciting because I love that idea that it's now the ball is in our court to decide what to do with it. And I'm
with you on that. I think part of the reason you might be observing your friends responding in that way is because I think I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm assuming they're of your generation, our generation, right?
Mostly.
We're getting fucking old. That's what happened.
I was going to say that is an old person response.
We are getting
back in my day, we drew it ourselves.
Yeah, we're getting fucking old, and we're seeing people in our generation act like old people, and it's shocking to me.
It is shocking, yeah.
Because maybe it's just my mindset. Like, maybe I just have a very young mindset, and I try and retain it as much as I can because I value it. It's where my creativity comes from.
Yep.
It's where my adaptability comes from. It's where anything that I appreciate about myself comes from. And I see people in my generation trying to act adult, and it's like, it's an act. It's just an act. Like, you're not.
Yeah.
The world is not going to give a fuck about you just because of what you did when you were 20 or whatever. Like, the world moves on. It's going to keep moving on, and you're just going to make your situation worse for yourself.
Yep.
Or you try and entrench yourself in that identity. Anyway, it's weird. Yeah, I need to actually mess around with some AI stuff pretty soon, but
Please do, because I don't see this as being a one-off episode. I see us coming back to this throughout the year.
Well, I mean, because ultimately I think this conversation is the conversation about the future of art. It's a conversation about where we go from here, because like I said earlier, like, it's kind of it's a bottleneck point, or not, maybe that's not the right term. It's like it is a point at which everything completely changes afterward. In the same way that photography completely changed the world once it became a popularized form. The same with radio and TV and everything else. Art completely changed when those things came about. And here's the other thing, one last thing. Just because these new forms come in doesn't mean that the old forms get totally eradicated. People still fucking paint. People are still going to paint, even with AI.
Yep.
Like, people are still going to paint. And in some sense, actual physical paintings might actually become more valuable because of it. But that doesn't change the fact that these new things are here. And they're going to continue to be here. They're not going to go away. You have to figure out where you fit in on that. And you have to figure out how to use it appropriately.
I also want to point out, and we're getting long here, and we're risking your your internet fucking up on us again. But I also need to point out, we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast, and I truly believe this to this day. You could give me, Rainwater, Diego, Joe Bevs, Joker, Aaron, like, you could give each artist that's ever been on this podcast the exact same prompt and say, write a story about a baby that finds sneakers for the first time, and he goes to McDonald's, and you and me and Joker, everybody are going to write a different story about a baby who finds shoes and goes to McDonald's. But each of those stories is going to be completely different. Like, there's nothing that is going to be the same about it. So when we talk about AI generating story or art, it comes down to the execution. You can type in, a cloud that looks like a donut that rains sprinkles, right? Yeah. But is it gonna do it in the style of Andy Warhol? I mean, you could put that prompt in and maybe it'll try to guess how he would do it. But as an artist, you can look at it and go, no, Warhol, I don't think he would have done that. I think he would have done this, or Rainwater would have done this. You're guessing what you're doing. The artificial intelligence is guessing. The execution is what makes art great. You know what I'm saying? So we could write that fucking story about a baby finding shoes and going to McDonald's, and my story will be different than Rainwater's. It won't be better or worse, and his won't be better or worse, but they will be different. The computer, the AI, is going to give you one story about a baby finding shoes and going to McDonald's, and it's not going to be the one that me or Rainwater wrote. You know what I'm saying? Like, the execution is what's going to end up mattered. You could tell it to do pointillism. Is it going to do pointillism the right way? Maybe you see a little bit of pointillism and you go, no, I want to do pointillism for this entire thing. But in this one section right here, I want to do cross-hatching just to make it different. And you can't tell the AI, oh, do it in the corner in cross-hatching or blah, blah, blah. It's going to guess what you're meaning about what part is doing it, and then it's going to fuck it up. Now, granted, in like 10 years, it might be able to do what I'm talking about. But for the time being, there's still that execution factor that I think is important for artists to acknowledge about yourself and your work. Like, it can do the work. Can it do it your way? Can it do it exactly the way you would do it? No, it cannot, because it's based off of previous information, right? But it doesn't have the full life experience of the artist at its helm. You do. You are changing every minute. The computer only has the works you've done up until the last work you did. But it doesn't have the same observations. It doesn't have the same life experiences. It doesn't have all of the weird dreams that you just had. It doesn't have the long night of drinking that you had with your friend, or the drugs that you tried doing, or the person who broke your heart, or the cat that just died. It doesn't have that shit to draw upon. You do. So your work has now changed by living. And you have that over the machine. Take advantage of it. Use it. Because as far as AI goes, as far as amazing as it gets, it will never get to that point where it is you. It really will not. It will only be the summation of things that have happened to you up until yesterday. So go live your life today. Take experiences in. Observe, absorb, dwell on it a little bit. Think about it. Postulate on it. Think about possibilities. All that kind of stuff. And you're always one step ahead. And that's my closing note. I don't know if you want to tack on anything else.
No, if I say anything else, the AI overlords will disconnect.
All right, we're going to let our new music play us out. Once again, the first 45 minutes was Rainwater on AI. And this last half hour has been Rainwater normal. So that's pretty much what the amazingness of the audio AI can do. I don't know if we're going to be back right away next week. Me and Rainwater got to hash out some schedule shit and figure some stuff out. But we will be having more and more episodes going on throughout this year. It will be interesting to see how it goes, because I think Rainwater and I are both in turning points in our creative lives, with him ending Trailer Park Warlock and me getting film stuff rocking and rolling again. It is a wild time here at Midnight at the Spaghetti Factory, but we are going to do our best to come back for you guys as often as we can with more and more discussions. And we thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you had a great holiday season. And thank you guys for being here. We love you. And I'll just end it on that.
Good night, y'all.